I'm Jennifer Runyon at IntSolar, and my guest right now is Gal Moyel from Free Hot Water.
Correct.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And so let's start with a little bit of background on Free Hot Water. How did you guys get started?
We were an engineering company in the semiconductor side, and we're working with companies like Applied, Intel, Lam, and about 3 years ago when the gas price was about $5 and our guys were fighting a war for oil, I told my wife we got to do something. I was losing sleep over it, and she said one thing that really got me going: there's nothing you can do about it. I said, really? So we decided that we're going to turn the company into something that makes sense on the renewable side, and we started looking into different aspects of renewables, and we ended up locking up to the solar thermal energy because of our vast knowledge of heat exchanger and fluid handling. That we know a lot about that.
Right.
And we have a lot of tools, and we develop a lot of different applications for that. So and that's what we locked into. And so we started. We wind out the semiconductor side and started working on the solar thermal, and we developed panels and racks and all the other pieces that you actually need to make it easy for people to get in the business.
Right.
So, and we mainly cater to the commercial side because we think that we can make the biggest dent in the renewable business in the commercial, because they're big users. These are millions of therms a year. However, we didn't forget the residential side. We have a system for the residential side, and that's and we try to make it very affordable, starting at $1,600 a base unit, all the way to maybe $4,000. You can get very fancy real quick if you want radiant heat and other things, but I mean the average system would be about $3,500.
Wow.
And then you have to install it.
Yeah, very affordable.
Well, it makes it very affordable because the federal government gives you 30% off. It basically is a tax incentive.
Yep.
And California would allow you another $2,000 as a resident to deduct. They're going to give you a check for $2,000, so that makes it very affordable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very much.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in the certification process for panels because it's a big deal in the industry. Talk a little bit about what is the process and why is it important that panels are certified?
All right. I think it has its roots in the 70s when a lot of people installed a lot of different systems on roofs and was no really certification or inspection or any due process. And this system worked for a very short time and they died, and they had got a very bad name for this thermal side. And people say, well, solar thermal is no good. Then the government got involved and said, look, for consumer protection, we need to actually be able to compare all these collectors. And in order to do that, they set up the University of Florida as the SRCC, which is the body that governs the certification of these collectors. And what they do, they take all these collectors and test them under the same conditions. So actually they normalize what we call the performance. And that actually allows the customer to look at the collector and compare apples to apples, as opposed to allow the marketeers to put a spin on it and nobody knows exactly what it is.
Right, so it's really for consumer protection.
It's for consumer protection, that's what it is for.
Yeah.
It doesn't say if the collector is good or bad. In the end, you look at the results, it would say if a collector with that size gives less, then it's a less of a collector. But in the end, what it is, it allows the consumer to protect the consumer against, not fraudulent, but maybe misstatements.
Right,
Yes.
right. And so a consumer cannot collect any kind of rebate unless the panel is SRCC certified.
Correct. In order to collect rebates, and that it's true for the government or California, any municipality or any local government, you need to have a certification. The collectors would have what we call an OG 100. That's the collectors. Any single component can be OG 100. A system should be OG 300 in order to collect it. So it's being basically what the process is basically consists of supplying a certain amount of collectors, and they go and test them under these certain conditions, and then they certify that this collector would produce that much energy per square foot, and then you know what you buy.
Right.
And the OG 300 side is that they take a whole, for residential mainly, you take a whole complete system and said if you buy that system for that climate, that's what you're going to get.
I see. Now, how long does that process take? Because I've heard that there have been some backlogs and some issues.
SRCC was there for many years, and for many years nobody was interested in the solar business, right? Solar thermal business. So what had happened is that there was staffed according to what the market needed, and then at a very short period of time, everybody and his brother got in their doors and do it right now. And as a capitalist system, we want it fast with now, and they got overwhelmed. And yes, it took him some time to react. But our experience with these guys is that they do the best they can with what they had.
Right.
But more than that, they lately they started certifying different labs, and we have IAPMO now is certified, and there's other labs that are certified to do the SRCC test. So it actually opens up much for, it makes it much more affordable and quicker.
Right.
As for the certification process.
Right. Great. So what about products being made in the USA? Are there any rebates that require that at this time?
That's a very good question. Our legislator, wanted to promote the solar thermal business, and they found out that most of the components are actually made outside the U.S. And that means a lot of that incentive is going to go to countries like China, Europe, and this is something of a concern for them, because especially with the employment. Unemployment, should I say, in the U.S., right in the U.S. So, it's not there yet, but we see signs that it would be, and you can see it right now in military bases. Government requires going to be U.S. made, which means certain component of it should be made in the U.S. Some companies do the assembly, some companies do a little more, and we see the writing on the wall, of course. And as a company in that space, we're already gearing with the governor office in Sacramento and the city of San Jose. And we already submitted our plans and paperwork to the municipality and to the government to allow us to start a factory here in the San Jose area.
Right. So what would be the time frame on that happening?
We hope that hope that we're going to get this the approval. We're not asking for money as much as for a loan, and there's other incentives that they would allow to anybody who put a factory in place, and we're going to return the money back. So the government takes, as we call it, the might of the machine. It needs to grind through the process. It takes what it takes. We hope that as soon as we have the approval from these guys, we look at 6 months into the approval process. We're going to have our logistics center with the assembly line, and then 6 months later we see a full-fledged factory, basically.
Right.
Collectors and potentially tanks as well.
Potentially employing 200 people.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's right around anywhere between 175 to 250, depends on what kind of production scale we're looking at.
Great. Well, Gal Moyal, thanks so much for coming out to talk with me.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thanks.